The following content is not intended as a substitute for professional medical advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician or other qualified health provider with any questions you may have regarding a medical condition.
Welcome to the Everyday Therapy Podcast. I'm Julianne Schroeder.
And I'm JC Rader.
And we are counselors and registered yoga teachers at White Rock, Dallas here. Oh my goodness. We're at...
Where are we?
Where are we? We're in Dallas, also located at White Rock Counseling. Anyways, lovely way to start the intro. But we're so excited that you're tuning in to hear us therapists chat and share stories, tips, and inspiration to inspire your everyday therapy life and overall emotional well-being.
That's what comes with doing this podcast live. So that's okay.
Yes. And so thrilled, honored to have a guest who is my dear friend and inspiration, Dorsey Standish, with us today. And she is going to let me gush about her for a little bit, and so she's going to be patient and soak it all in. But I am so thankful to know Dorsey, and I'll have her share about her credentials here in just a minute. But I just want
That's not the fun part for us.
No, but I just want to share with you the type of person that she is and how that really just infuses in the way of living and her work. But I met Dorsey when I think I was really hustling in my work career. And so I went to a yoga studio right by one of my offices, primarily out of like a potential marketing opportunity and also for my own self-care. And I came to your deep stretch class. Yeah. And I remember walking into this little nondescript yoga studio, Yoga Chiquitza in Richardson, Texas, and the entryway has this beautiful, like, is it not wallpaper? It's actual. What would you describe it, Dorsey?
Yeah, it's like a sculpture of trees.
Sculpture of trees, birch trees. And if anybody knows me, there's some symbolism to trees, and in particular some birch trees, because they symbolize growth and they mean a lot to me for personal reasons. But I was like, wow, this means something. And it just so happened that Dorsey was there, and it has fostered a friendship where I think really we were trying to support each other and really sharing the best that we can to help each other out. And I'm just so appreciative. And with that, Dorsey's specialty in mindfulness and meditation, and has just inspired me to keep that into my daily practice. So.
Thanks so much, Julianne. I'm really happy to be here, JC and Julianne. You guys are so sweet and such good friends. And I love the story of us meeting at deep stretch class at yoga. Yeah. And I was saying before we started on air that my friendship with Julianne has been one of the healthiest, most nurturing relationships that I've ever had.
I love that.
In my life. I mean, we met each other at this point. We were both kind of hustling. I was teaching yoga, and Julianne was trying to establish her therapy business. And we worked together in all sorts of ways. We did a self-compassion workshop together, multiple ones. I did Julianne's website, and we met to inspire each other on a business level and a personal level. And I think that inspiration continues today, and we try to take part in each other's passion projects as much as possible. So
I love that. Let's just talk about friendship today.
Yes. And connection.
I think y'all have the cutest relationship too. Because y'all meet up and it's like once a quarter and y'all do vision boards, and I get so jealous. I love it so much. I'm gonna invite myself the next time y'all do this. But y'all's like quarterly vision boarding meetings are so fun.
Yeah.
I
feel like I could do weekly vision boarding. 'Cause, Sunday night I always have my existential crisis of like, what am I doing with my life? Am I living my life purpose? Anyways, thankful for Dorsey to keep me grounded. And especially in our work together. Her calm demeanor. I mean, just if anybody knows yoga, she is a kapha personality type.
Yes.
But anyways, for those that don't know, that just means that she's just super grounded and loving, go with the flow Zen, which really just makes her the perfect fit for being just this incredible meditation teacher and educator of others.
I'm glad that's how I seem on the outside, Julianne, but I have to confess, I haven't always been calm. And I haven't always, and even now, like I have my moments of losing it. I think we all do. Yes. And so it's not a path of perfection. It's a path of figuring out when we get off balance, like how do we get back in the groove and I use mindfulness meditation. So you guys heard that I teach yoga, and I now run a mindfulness business called Mastermind Meditate here in Dallas. And
you're kind of a big deal.
She is a big deal
in the Dallas community.
Yeah. And I love her title. Can you just share with listeners what your title is?
Yeah, I'm the Chief Mindfulness Officer.
Oh, love it.
How freaking cool is that, right?
Yeah, it's awesome. It pretty much means I get to do all aspects of the business and try to be mindful in it, which is like a whole nother deal to bring mindfulness into business. Because it's one thing to be on a cushion and be happy, which we'll talk about. But how do you maintain that mindful demeanor as you go out into the world, especially as you do business?
That's so interesting, because I think of mindfulness as my like little practice in the morning, but to think of it as part of my business or like a value in my business, that's really cool. I want to talk more about that. So today our topic's mindfulness, by the way. Did we say that?
Oh, I don't think we did. Sorry. I just started just expressing all my feels.
All the feels.
So I'm super jazzed to talk about it. So, and to hear kind of your thoughts and defining it and how to do it for beginner listeners. And then also like as a more advanced practitioner, like little reminders. I feel like it's so helpful to take like basic classes again or hear basic things again to get back into it.
Yeah, for sure. So I'd love to start out with my story because I think stories are always the best way to start. Yes. So I mentioned that I haven't always been calm. I am a total type A perfectionist engineer. I went to an Ivy League college for mechanical engineering and worked at Texas Instruments for 5 years as a design engineer and a program manager. And while I was there, I got certified as a yoga teacher, and I was kind of getting on my mat pretty regularly, but I wasn't living all the principles of yoga, including meditation. And I had an experience a few years back of just total stress-induced burnout. And I actually was diagnosed with bipolar disorder, and I had a manic episode. And again, people like who knew me would have laughed if I had said I'm going to sit still for 5 minutes. Like if it didn't have a goal or a checkbox after it, I didn't want to do it. You know, I didn't want to do nothing. But when I was diagnosed with a mental illness, I knew that I had to do anything I could to train my brain, just like I trained my body at the gym. And so I dived headfirst into mindfulness meditation. I read a lot of books. I did a bunch of different apps. And within a year, I had done my first silent meditation retreat, which was just 4 days.
Just 4 days.
Wow. I think one of the best things that I did for people that want to get started with meditation is set that intention. Like I had like a life or death reason to meditate, right? Like to be saying like, I need to train my brain.
I don't know you as well as Julianne, so I had no idea about that. So that's super interesting. And so many of our clients struggle with mental illness, and it's so hard for them to meditate or be mindful. So I'm so glad that you shared that.
Yeah, and I'm glad you said that, JC, because I started with 1 and 2 minute meditations. I mean, it wasn't like I was sitting there for 20 minutes when I first started.
For an hour.
Yeah, no. I was doing like 1 minute and being so excited that I could do that.
I love that. Yeah, like start somewhere.
From a neuroscience perspective, the habit formation of meditation is the most important part. So if you create a habit that every morning you take time for yourself, it doesn't matter if it's 1 minute. From having that habit, you can expand it to be longer, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Yeah. But it's like once you create the habit, that's the seed that can grow as you water it.
And it just reminds me of like the bad habits that you can create in the morning, such as like getting on Instagram right away. So I love that. Yeah. Starting with meditation, just 1-2 minutes.
Yeah. I teach a class called Mindful Digital Detox. And so we have a lot of those tips in there. It's kind of like neuroscience and mindfulness as it applies to digital devices and habit formation and stuff. So we can do a lot of episodes, I guess.
Oh my goodness. Yes.
Reoccurring this is mindfulness number 1. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I love, so a mentor of mine, Melody Moore, she shared a ritual in helping to create healthy habits that she uses, of where she does her own yoga, prayer, and meditation before she even reaches to her phone to check the email in the morning. And it's, like that's her reward, right?
Yeah.
Like, so if I do this, then I can get my phone, which is like, oh, that's pretty nice.
Yeah, because if we have a reward that we get, our brains are more likely to establish it as a habit. So that's a good technique. Another thing that I love to do is bundle a healthy habit with something we already do. Like for me, every morning when I meditate, I'm drinking coffee because it makes me happy. And it's totally solidified the habit toward when I almost had like a meltdown when I was leading a yoga retreat a few months ago and the coffee pot wasn't working. And I was like, I can't meditate. I don't have coffee. Which is so silly. I had to laugh at myself. But it really works. Bundling habits with other habits really works.
I like that. Yeah.
And, if I actually love that you brought that up. And I think at some point here, we would love to talk about how meditation and mindfulness can look differently. But so I use coffee or my coffee morning time or tea as I'm trying to break my coffee habit as some way to practice some mindfulness. And so like just slowing down, like holding the cup, feeling like the smoothness of the ceramic cup and then the temperature of the hot coffee, really taking sips, really feeling it, smelling it, just all these practices of really like tuning into the present moment. And so I love that because I think sometimes people think of, okay, well, mindfulness meditation, you're sitting cross-legged with, your fingers in the classic pose, oming, right?
Yeah.
And it doesn't have to be that way.
Like
right?
super woo-woo, new agey.
On top of a mountain.
Yeah.
Right?
Away for 10
But if I
days
could
in the
meditate on
Himalayas.
top of a mountain every day, I would. I think I'd be super connected to God.
So let's talk about what mindfulness actually is, because you bring up a really good point, Julianne, about using your senses to tune into like the feel of the cup and the smell of the coffee, which is amazing. Our senses are one way that we can ground into the present moment. The other tools that we have are our breath, which is always with us, rarely paying attention to it. And same thing with our physical bodies. It's almost like we drag around anywhere below the neck, like for most of the day, and we don't think about our bodies. We're all in our heads. So the practice of mindfulness uses these as anchors, the senses, the breath, and the body to help us be here and now, which is not the natural state of the mind by any means, which is why these brain training practices have been around for thousands of years.
I love that you're calling it that too, brain training practices. Like that's like a synonymous for mindfulness. It sounds like that you're using.
Well, yeah, I think that a big misconception about meditation is that it's relaxation and you just like zone out. And that's great. Like if you fall asleep or if you just zone out, I'm sure you got something out of it. But the reason that we practice mindfulness meditation is to anchor our minds more so in the present moment so that we experience less of the anxiety of worrying about the future and less of the depression of dwelling on the past. And while relaxation is nice, to get the full benefits of meditation, you really need to be actively noticing when you've drifted and coming back to the present moment. So basically, mindfulness is paying attention to the present moment on purpose and without judgment. And informal mindfulness practice is kind of like Julianne saying, like you're having a cup of coffee and you're feeling it and you're smelling it and you're really enjoying it. A formal mindfulness practice would be mindfulness meditation. So not necessarily on top of a mountain, but you'd be most likely cross-legged or seated in a chair and formally practicing awareness of the breath, awareness of the body, or awareness of the five senses and bringing yourself back whenever you drifted.
So it sounds like the formal mindfulness practice is setting aside specific time, whereas informal is more like maybe doing the dishes like one thing at a time and focusing on that one thing and everything that goes along with it.
Yeah, I love that, JC. It's like single tasking, which
Yes, unitasking.
Multitasking, that's the thing. Can you share why multitasking doesn't work? Do you have any info on that?
Yeah, so I read a research article recently that multitasking was the worst thing you could do for your brain health. Basically, they did brain scans of heavy multitaskers and people who were used to doing a bunch of things at once. And even when those people tried to do just one thing, more of their brain lighted up than should have. Like it was inefficiently responding to the task because it thought it was going to do a million different things. And so they were not able to focus their attention down onto one task.
That's so me.
They did find that 3 10-minute breath meditations for these people, after those short meditations, they were able to focus a lot better.
So there's hope for the continual multitaskers, right?
Well, and even I read somewhere that our brains can't actually multitask. It's task switching that we're doing. So we're just basically getting off task. We can only unitask, but we try to do, like me, I do it for sure. And then I lose my keys and forget things and lose my sunglasses.
So we do, I know what you're saying, JC, like we can't pay attention to more than one thing at once. So we are just switching our attention back and forth if we're doing two things that require our attention. There's like that saying, can you walk and chew gum? Because once we're walking, we don't have to pay conscious attention to that or to chewing gum. So there are things that you can technically do at the same time because they don't require your attention. But we try to do things like on our phone and our computers and talking to people that all require our full attention. And so in those cases, we're task switching.
Okay. Yeah, that's a good differentiation between the two, for sure.
But because of the day and age that we live in, this idea of slowing down and unitasking seems like really hard. And because we're just exposed to so much and like kind of it's normalized to be always doing, right?
It's like unique and different to be just doing one thing at a time. Like, what's wrong with you? Why aren't you being productive?
Right. It's almost like you're not important if you're not doing a lot of things. Like, oh, you're not busy? Oh, I'm sorry.
Right. Yeah. It's a status symbol. Like, how busy can you be?
Right. Sure.
So with that, do you ever encounter, like when you share with people or try to, go to corporations, like any sort of resistance of like, well, why would we just sit around and do quote unquote nothing?
So I want to go back to one point that you made about that I did encounter in dealing with a finance firm, and they were resistant to getting there, but once they all got there, we did a few relaxation practices, mindfulness meditations, and this guy was like, I'm too relaxed. Oh my gosh. Like I need to get that stress level back up. How am I going to get anything done? He's like freaking out, like standing up, trying to get stressed again. So what's funny is that we wear that status.
I love it. That's so funny.
We wear that status symbol of busyness and stress and anxiety. And so sometimes actually once you're relaxed, you feel like this is not good. But there's also resistance on the other end in terms of, like you're saying, people seeing the value of slowing down. Those are my favorite clients because I was one of those people, right? Like I was the corporate America, climbing the ladder, doing as much as I could with every waking hour. And within just a few months of meditating, like I couldn't look at my job at TI the same. I was working probably half as much as I ever did and getting as much done. I was calmer. I felt like I was doing something for myself every day. And I had this path that I was on, that it wasn't a path to perfection, right? It's like a path to progress of like, I care about my mental health. And I have this place of peace inside me that no matter what crazy things happen at the office, I know that this morning I experienced peace for even if it was just 60 seconds.
Yeah, it's kind of like that idea of equanimity, of like having this still calmness. And I love how John Kabat-Zinn talks about like the ocean, and like deep down the ocean stays still, but on the top there's storms or chaos or whatever. So like in the morning you have that, you're tapping into that peace, calm, and you kind of can maintain and come back to that throughout your day. Exactly. In a sense.
Exactly. I actually, I just got back from a weekend meditation retreat last month, and that's how our teacher closed the retreat. She said, you know, you're never going to feel this peaceful with no phone and nothing to do. You're never going to feel this peaceful in your daily life, but you can remember that it's possible to feel this peaceful. And that's what it's not like we go around like perfectly zen all the time, but we remember that we have this practice and we experience this phenomenon of like non-doing and just letting things be that we can come back to and tap into and remember.
Yeah. What are some of the other benefits of mindfulness that maybe people wouldn't think of?
So you guys told me to geek out a little bit. So
Yes,
I'm going to
geek
talk
out
for
all
a
you
little
want.
bit. We're doing a brain health workshop this weekend that Julianne is going to attend. So all this knowledge is fresh on my mind.
How lucky we are to get you right now.
Yeah. So mindfulness meditation has been shown to alter both your states and your traits. So we talked about those heavy multitaskers, you know, who did some breathing practice and then they could focus better. That's a state change. They're not going to they're going to lose that benefit after a few days from meditating. Okay. But if you meditate every day over 6 months, a year, depends on the length of the study, that becomes a trait. So you're able to focus better as a permanent effect, not just contingent upon your meditation practice. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Looking at like the level of like structural brain changes and epigenetics, different gene expression. So that's kind of
amazing.
Sure. So for those that are like, well, I've always been, you know, the natural sort of worrier, go type. What Dorsey is saying is like that can change.
Yeah.
Right.
Exactly. Over time.
Yeah.
I remember. Yeah. I saw someone I knew from like high school time a few years ago, and I'd only been meditating about a year, and she was like, "Who are you?" So you can really shift and change with continued practice. And that being said, when you look at the neural changes, so like how does the brain change with mindfulness meditation practice? One of the biggest areas is its ability to deal with stress, to be resilient. So with mindfulness meditation, you see reduced activity in the amygdala, which is, I'm sure you guys are like, yes.
Yeah. I always think of almonds because I describe the amygdala as the almond.
Yeah, a little almond shaped part of the brain.
I'm also hungry too, sorry.
Love it. Also the emotional part of the brain.
Yes. Which also signals hunger too. Anyways.
Yeah.
Continue.
So your fight or flight response, that anxiety, that especially the habitual anxiety. So with mindfulness meditation, you reduce the activity in the amygdala. And then over time, the size of the amygdala actually decreases slightly. So there's less gray matter in that part of the brain. And the other cool thing is that your connection between your prefrontal cortex, which is the executive functioning center, the prefrontal cortex is more strongly connected to the amygdala, so that say you are in traffic and someone cuts you off and you freak out for a moment, you have that stronger connection from the rational part of your brain that's like, hey, I know you're pissed off, but like we're going to get back on track. Right. And so you can reestablish kind of that rational thinking faster when you have more control between your prefrontal cortex and your amygdala. So those are just some of the kind of how to deal with the fight or flight response and how to get your full capabilities back online.
Yeah. Sounds like anyone who struggles with overwhelming emotion, like being able to reconnect to that rational part of the brain a little bit quicker.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and we're going to do, a little later, we'll do some breath practices. I think sometimes breathing is just the simplest, easiest way to bring...
That's my favorite kind of mindfulness still to this day. So yeah, I'm excited for that.
Yeah, and the other thing I want to touch on before I continue about the brain health benefits, when we talk about anxiety or like overwhelming thoughts, there are two different pathways for anxiety to manifest in the brain. The first is when it goes directly to your amygdala. So like you're in a situation where you feel unsafe and you're immediately triggered, right? The second pathway is through your frontal lobe. So you're thinking about something that makes you anxious.
Oh, yes.
Yes. I think our clients might know a thing about that.
We might.
I mean,
know,
no, not
maybe.
from personal experience at all. No.
Yeah, no, I mean, even I was up at 3 a.m. the other night doing that. And I'm like, okay, I got it. I know what to do. But we all experience it. So when it comes through the frontal lobes, you have some time before the amygdala is triggered to change the channel, to make a change and get off that topic that's inevitably going to cause you to be triggered.
Okay.
And this is totally, it's not like cheating or a cop-out to change the channel. It's like saying, okay, I recognize that these thoughts are going on, and I'm going to make a choice to create new healthy pathways in my brain. The best things to switch to are like a positive affirmation or a sensory experience, kind of like Julianne was talking about, holding the coffee cup, or even call a friend and say, I'm having anxiety. Can we talk about your day or something like that?
Yeah, kind of a distraction.
Exactly.
And connecting with somebody.
Right.
Yeah.
Because the more, neurons that fire together wire together. So the more we emphasize those brain connections of worrying and that triggering our amygdala, it's like, we're just digging ourselves a deeper hole. And so we just need to switch and create new healthy pathways.
Yeah. We talked about anxiety last week and how we can sometimes perpetuate anxiety with our thoughts and not even be aware of it. So that's kind of what you're talking about, is you're thinking about it and then you keep thinking about it and it builds up and layers. And so kind of course correcting a little bit.
Yeah. And I think it's that sometimes we're not even aware, like you said. And mindfulness, a synonym for mindfulness is awareness. So sometimes these practices just give you that little bit of space or like, oh, that's what's going on,
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah. So you say create new pathways. This is how my brain works. I'm like, sometimes this is hard, and especially for people who are maybe more predisposed to being anxious. And then I think, oh my gosh, it's got to be like the Oregon Trail. Like, just can you imagine like creating new pathways, just being a lot of effort, like really feel like you're not going anywhere and being so slow. I don't know why that came to mind.
I love that. I'm writing that down. It's like your uncharted territory. You are going.
Yes. Oh my gosh, that's such a cute image.
Yeah.
I was also just talking about Oregon Trail a couple days ago, like the computer game. Anyways,
yeah.
That's where it came from.
Yeah.
But, I wonder how you work with clients that, say like, this is so hard. How do I do this? I know you mentioned yourself starting a minute at a time, but do you have any tips to navigate the arduous process of creating new pathways?
Yeah. It is hard, but it's worth it.
Yeah.
I don't think anyone listening to this podcast or in this room is like trying to be in their comfort zone their whole lives and just like numb out. Do you know what I mean? Like we're here because we want to grow and we want to be the best versions of ourselves. And it is challenging to like forge the Oregon Trail. I love that analogy. It's hard, for me to sit for 20 minutes every morning in silence, but it is also beautiful because it's like some of the only silence that I get all day. And so I think when we talk about it being hard, I think people think it's hard when they don't think they're doing it right or they're not like succeeding, right?
Yeah.
And so, John Kabat-Zinn responds to almost every student asks him the question, am I doing this right? And he says, if you're aware of what's happening, even if it doesn't feel very meditative, then you're doing it right. Like it's just about being here and being like, oh wow, I just thought about my grocery list for 5 minutes and like that's like my Whole Foods groove, like really reinforce that one. It's okay. The fact that you're taking time to sit in silence makes you one of a select few with the discipline and the desire and the commitment to yourself and to the health of your brain. It's like getting on the cushion is the biggest battle. And once you do that, the rest is just like curiosity. So when we first started, I talked about the definition of mindfulness as paying attention to the present moment on purpose and without judgment. And pretty much the opposite of judgment is curiosity. So if you're like, I wonder how my mind's going to be today. I wonder what my breath's going to feel like. Man, I wonder why, my lower back is like tight right there. I wonder, instead of like, oh, there's that pain. Oh, I'm such an idiot. My mind keeps going off. Like, it's like you ask questions and you get curious, and that lighter touch helps meditation move from something that's really hard to a challenge that you're embracing.
I love that.
Yeah, I love that. Yeah, curiosity as the curative response to judgment.
Yeah.
Yeah. And also maybe some like normalizing, oh, there goes my mind again. Okay, welcome to being human. There's my brain. Right.
Yeah. So I love the analogy of thinking about your mind like a puppy that you're training, and it's like it's never done this before. It doesn't know what to do. You can't get very mad at it. And you're like, sit, stay. And it keeps going off and sniffing the bushes or chasing its tail or something. And so every time you notice, like you would never hit a puppy, right?
Or, yeah.
You would never like
scream at it.
Right. But see, we would treat ourselves like that
Yeah.
and we don't think about it, but we would be really mean to ourselves if we noticed that we were continually failing at mindfulness.
Yeah, and it's expected that the puppy runs off or does
exactly.
little behaviors or whatever.
I'm so glad you said expected, JC, because what determines our experience is usually our expectations for that experience. And so if you sit down for mindfulness expecting it to be easy and relaxing and, you know, a treat, and there are ways to approach it, and you guys are the experts at this. There are ways to approach it with a mindset that's flexible and open, where you're setting yourself up to succeed no matter what.
Just sorry, we're just
I know, I'm
soaking
like,
it in.
dang.
Yeah.
I want to go meditate.
Yeah.
Because I really do. Like, I started meditating in college and just found it so helpful with my personal anxiety, kind of like you were talking about as well. And I did the Vipassana meditation retreat for 10 days.
Nice.
Yeah, it was crazy. But yeah, and I have gone away from it a little bit because it is like hard to make that committed action. And I think it's so important to remember all the benefits and how to do it and all the things that you're talking about. So yeah. So thank you for being here, re-inspiring me.
Oh my gosh, I did the 10-day Vipassana last year. That was like a marathon for your mind. That was really difficult.
I did have the experience of being scared of like losing myself or like being too zen or so like there were some times that I I pulled back because I was scared of meditating even though I've been doing it for so long.
Yeah.
Yeah. I just thought that was interesting. Kind of like that guy.
The finance guy.
Yeah.
Oh my God, that's too relaxed.
I can't be too relaxed.
So another question that I get a lot is, if I'm mindful all the time, how can I set goals? How can I reflect on the past and like see what I did wrong? And so I always say that mindfulness meditation is a tool in your toolkit. It's something that you use once, maybe twice a day for, 1 to 20 minutes. And it's, it trains your brain to be more positive, more resilient, and more peaceful in the present moment. And it's not like you have to be mindful all the time, but having that groundedness, especially if you practice for a minute before you set goals, like just allowing yourself to be centered, the amygdala to be calmed down, prefrontal cortex like fully ready to go. It's a tool to help you set goals and to help reflect on the past in a healthy way. None of us is going to live in a nunnery and renounce all our worldly possessions.
Unless that is your purpose.
Yeah.
Then go live that life.
I guess I meant the three.
I mean, you never know what can happen.
Yeah, I don't know. Sorry.
No, you're fine. So can I talk about a couple more brain health benefits?
Yes, please do.
I know it's like so meaty, but
no. Well, I think this is important to get buy-in. So you know why? Okay, it's a hard practice. It's hard to develop discipline doing something that doesn't always feel immediately good. So knowing why is so important. So please share.
Well, and even like I'm saying, like practitioners who have been practicing for a long time, like me, like I have to remind myself of the benefits, or like that buy-in. For me, it has like dissipated a little bit. So yeah, please do share.
Yeah, sure. So we talked about benefits of dealing with stress, resilience, regulating your emotions. The other big area of mindfulness research is in attention and focus, which is, for any of you high performers out there, that's always something that we want to get better at, right? Focusing. And we already touched on that aspect of single tasking or unitasking. But mindfulness meditation, they did this study where in 2 weeks, they had the participants take the GRE at the beginning of the time and then meditate for 2 weeks for 20 minutes a day, focused on breath and body sensations, and then retake the GRE. and they found that they actually got smarter or their scores got better. Their reading comprehension scores got better and their working memory improved. So they were able to hold more concepts in their mind at once. And that's from 2 weeks.
That's so legit. Oh my goodness. Okay. What happens if you meditate like 8 hours a day? A little all or nothing approach. What? Like, what would happen though? Like, if you study, who is it that Matthew Ricard deemed like the most, the happiest guy in the world? Because he meditates. Sorry, I sidetracked you from that, but do you know?
I've heard of Matthew Ricard, but I'm not intimately familiar with his work or his practice.
Well, we'll go back to Matthew Ricard if we have time at the end. But I was just thinking, like, okay, if 20 minutes can produce that impact, like, just imagine what more can do.
Yeah. But it's funny. Have you read The Four Agreements, either of you?
Mm-hmm. I haven't, no.
Okay. So there's a line in there about, well, what if I meditated he's like, meditate for 4 hours a day. And the guy's like, what if I meditated for 8 hours a day? And he was like, it would take twice as long to become enlightened. Don't be overzealous. Still do your family. Still go to your job. Keep up with your regular life. And meditation is important, but it's not the only thing.
Yeah.
So
that's good. Yeah.
I love it, and I'm like butchering the exact quote, but sometimes we want to just like do more if there are benefits. But just 20 minutes in 2 weeks has been shown to transform your cognitive abilities. So.
Yeah. Well, and I have seen people that find meditation or yoga or something and they get really into it and they just dive in, and then it's not sustaining. It's not long term because you kind of burn out on that. So just implementing it little by little into your daily practice seems more sustainable.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say about attention and focus is that the circuitry in the brain for your working memory and your ability to pay attention, it's also the workhorse in regulating emotions. So there's a side benefit. There's a program called the Warrior Fitness Program out of Georgetown and the University of Miami that basically uses this attention training through mindfulness to help soldiers manage their emotions better. So you get a dual benefit when you train, both the focus and your ability to regulate emotions.
Yes. Which, when I think about like, how does that play out in your everyday life, right? It helps with work performance, improved relationships. Yeah. So you don't fly off the handle or become so emotionally just overwhelmed.
Yeah. So improved relationship with yourself, improved relationship with your significant other, with your friends, and people who meditate feel more socially connected. Yeah. And there's a big part of mindfulness is, and JC would know if he went on that Vipassana retreat, it probably ended with some loving kindness meditation or compassion meditation practice. And so that's a big component of practice is in most Asian languages, heart and brain are the same word. So like mindfulness is really heartfulness. Not so much like maybe
That's so sweet.
Yeah.
I love it.
I'm like over here. I'm like, oh.
Because it feels that way, like being a practitioner of it, like it does feel like the heartfulness, more connected to yourself.
Yeah, it's finding that natural warmth, that natural openness, that natural intelligence that we all have. And it gets kind of covered over by all of our stuff and our busyness and our life. And whenever you get to sit down and just be silent, it's kind of like you're digging, like you're pulling that away and you're connecting back to your heart, back to your mind, back to your body.
I love it. I'm just going to sit here and cry and admire all the feels today from me over here.
Love it.
So there's so many benefits, and we've talked about, I guess, some roadblocks and how to manage that. With the time that we have left, did we want to share some favorite practices or tips, and then maybe even
resources?
Resources, and then end with you, Dorsey, leading us through some breathing?
Yeah, for sure. So our company has a full resource guide with books and TED Talks and apps. And then we have our own YouTube, meditation and digital stuff. So I can just give you guys, you can share it on the show notes.
Yeah. Perfect.
Okay, cool. I have a lot of stuff for free.
It's like a wealth of information.
Yeah, definitely. So in terms of my favorite practices, I came into these mindfulness practices through yoga. So for my clients that are having a hard time sitting still, I always recommend like Tai Chi, Qigong, yoga, mindful walking. Like sometimes we need a little bit of movement. And some of the best retreats I've ever been on, they'll start the day with a little bit of movement. And it really helps to just connect with your body. I practice for 20 minutes every morning. A lot of times it's in silence. Sometimes I'll do a guided practice if I'm feeling it. I usually try to end with a little bit of loving kindness, something like heartfelt. And I also, I journal every morning and I write down my affirmations and 5-ish things that I'm grateful for. This morning it was like 10 because I was feeling really grateful.
Oh, I love it.
But yeah, gratitude is a great sister practice to mindfulness. It's like if mindfulness is training your mind to be present, gratitude is training your mind to see the good. You guys know all about the negativity bias, you know, we're oriented towards the bad. So we have to retrain ourselves with something like a gratitude journal, a gratitude meditation practice.
I think that's such a good reminder because I hear so many clients like, why do I think this way? Or why am I so negative? Or why do I do this? Why do I do that? But like, it's part of being human a little bit.
Yeah. And so a quick kind of way to flip the switch in daily life, if you just find yourself like in the dumps, we've all been there, you can ask yourself, what am I grateful for? And it literally changes the way you think because all of a sudden you're looking for what's good. So that's a great reset in the middle of the day, on the go, to shift more to that grateful.
Yeah. And so to even like narrow that down more, what am I grateful for today? I mean, there is that element of bringing it to the present-ish, right? I mean, and so that seems kind of like in line with mindfulness, right?
Yeah.
A little bit?
Yeah, it's interesting. So I'm such a nerd. Like I had this debate with someone the other day, whether gratitude was mindfulness or not. Yeah. Because we're technically not always paying attention in the present moment when we're grateful. I'm really grateful for my family.
Yeah.
So I call it a sister practice to mindfulness.
Okay.
If you want to be really present with it, what am I grateful for today? But if you're feeling really like negative, sometimes just being like, what the heck am I grateful for? Is there anything that I can think
start
of?
somewhere.
Yeah, like I'm walking right now, and it's an element I love to include in the meditations that I do. Like, can you find gratitude for your feet? Where have they carried you? As you're doing a body scan or as you're breathing, it's like, what added layer of appreciation can you bring to yourself as you are?
Yeah. Cultivate an attitude of gratitude, right? Trying to keep up with Dorsey and all her little one-liners. I love it. I love the rhyming. Love it. So those are some of your favorite practices. JC, do you have any? Want to share?
Yeah, I think my favorite is the breath. Like I feel like I get a high from my breath a little bit, like zooming into the present moment. Not always, but yeah, I really connect with the breath and a body scan, just noticing stress, tension in my shoulders, and that I've been carrying it all day, my shoulders and my ears, and being able to relax them down my back, and going down my body from, the top of my head to my feet. And that can take me a few minutes to 20 minutes, however long I want it to take. So this would be my favorite. Yeah, what about you, Julian?
Yeah. Well, when it's not raining for 2 weeks on end, I love to take mindfulness outside. And just really with the sensation of focusing on, okay, if there's a breeze, how does it feel kind of over the hair and on the skin? Noticing the temperature of the sun. Oh, the sun is so nice. I'm missing it right now.
Yeah.
Or being able to look at like the green trees. I mean, sometimes when I drive in the morning, and practicing, just like noticing on my drive, just like, oh my gosh, like there's just some beautiful scenery around.
Yeah, being present with what's around you.
Yeah, so I love
it. It's so simple, and we make it so complicated. Being present.
Yeah. Do.
So, shall we practice mindfulness?
Yeah, let's
activity?
Do it. So I'm gonna have you guys. Let's just stand up for a second because is that okay?
Yeah.
I think we just gotta keep kind of near the mic.
I just want you guys to stretch out. It's gonna take a minute.
Oh, okay. I'm like, this feels good actually.
So if you're listening to this, just even if you're driving or whatever, just wiggle a little bit, take up some space. A lot of times, our state of mind is connected to our state of body. So we hunch over a computer all day and we wonder why we're depressed.
Yeah, Ziggy's joining us in that.
Yes. Love it. I don't know if you guys have seen the TED Talk by Amy Cuddy about power posing. It's one of my favorites. I always bring that up in the workshops that I do because it's, again, our state of body influences our state of mind.
Will you talk just a minute about that?
Yeah, for sure.
Since we're on it.
So basically, Amy Cuddy found that you could do these power poses like Superwoman pose, she calls, with, feet wide apart, hands on the hips, chest open, or even victory pose with your arms overhead. And so both of these poses boost your testosterone levels, so it helps your confidence, and they lower your cortisol levels, so lower your stress hormones in your body.
So it's amazing.
Yes.
So amazing.
It's a great way to feel good and chill out before a big test, a big meeting, big presentation, anything like that. I took a neuroscience final last week and I walked around in victory pose in the hallway. Just no, not the whole day. Only 2 minutes are required.
After that, I'd be like, hell yes, victory pose all day long.
Yeah. But so, and another cool study about our posture is that out of the University of Scotland, they looked at depressed patients and their kind of stature when they walked using a 3D motion capture camera. And then they also looked at quote unquote normal people as well. Not surprisingly, they found that the people who were depressed were more hunched over and kind of closed off. What they then did was had the normal people adopt the depressed posture for 5 minutes and walk around and report their mood afterwards. And all of them reported a drop in their mood. They were less happy, and more self-focused because they were like this. So we think it's when we get really messed up in the head or we lose our minds, whatever you want to call it, and we feel like we can think our way out of it. You can't, but you can change your body to change your state of mind.
Yes, yeah.
Yes, we fully support that as yoga teachers.
Yes. So that's why I had you guys stand up or wherever you are, wiggle around a little bit, because so often we think it's just about our heads and we can use our bodies too. So come back. I'm not going to have you stand up. Although you can do a standing meditation, especially if you're feeling sleepy. That's a great option. So go ahead and settle into your comfortable seat. Roll the shoulders up, back, and down, feeling broad across the collarbones, open across the chest. If you're comfortable, you can soften down the eyes or gaze softly a few feet in front of you. Check in with the area of the jaw. Notice if you can soften. Maybe let the tongue drop away from the roof of the mouth. And begin to feel the breath in your body. You might deepen your breath slightly. Sensing it around the nostrils and in the area of the chest and the belly. Go ahead and bring a hand or two to your belly and start to direct your breath into your abdomen. With this belly breathing, we're gently stimulating the vagus nerve, which helps encourage the parasympathetic or rest and digest nervous system to activate. We'll start to become aware of the length of our inhales and exhales. I'm going to offer you guys the option to count to 4 on the in-breath and count to 8 on the out-breath. If you notice that the mind has been pulled away, it's actually a moment of mindfulness. That's why we're here. That's why we practice. And research shows the most important moment of your practice is that moment when you notice you've drifted and you come back to the object of focus, in this case, your breath. Take 3 more of these 4-8 breath cycles. You can gently relax your attention on the breath. Relax your hand from the belly if it's still there. And take a moment to tune into your whole body, feeling the breath moving in the body. And see if there's one thing that you can be grateful for about yourself in this moment, no matter how small or simple. Breathing in that gratitude to the center of your chest. And lift the corners of your mouth upwards in a small smile, sealing in this quality time with yourself. As Thich Nhat Hanh says, emotions come and go like clouds in a windy sky. Conscious breathing is my anchor. Let this breath nourish you and anchor you for the rest of your day and the rest of your week. Gently wiggle the fingers and the toes. Make any small movements that feel good. And invite your attention, your presence back into the room.
Wow, you do have skills. Because here with the light bright.
I feel like I have to talk quietly
Yeah.
now. That was so nice.
I think that was just a few minutes, and it's amazing that just a few minutes can really shift your energy and your mood.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ziggy, did you try back there, the meditation? He's giving a head nod. Thumbs up? Thumbs up. Yes. Awesome.
Thank you so much for being here today with us.
Yes. Thank
Yeah,
you
this
for
was
sharing
so great.
all your knowledge and wisdom and love.
Yeah, all the benefits and just information, how to do it. So we'll list everything in our show notes for our listeners. But yeah, thank you so much.
And where can we find you, Dorsey? We'll link notes. Do you want to share your personal?
Yeah, sure. Well, the resource guide that I share will have Mastermind's website on it. The company I run is called Mastermind Meditate, and we're at mastermindmeditate.com. We're actually doing a brain health immersion in January. It's another instance of the event Julianne and I are doing together this weekend. So if you're interested in diving into mindfulness, I would highly recommend it. And we'll link to that in the show notes as well.
Perfect. And seems like you're always doing workshops and teaching mindfulness. So even if it's past January and somebody's listening to this, still look into Dorsey. And please rate, review, and subscribe to our podcast on iTunes. We'd really appreciate it. You can also, if you're liking the podcast, share it with your friends. And there's a donation space on our website as well. Thank you guys so much, and we'll see y'all next week.